Don't know about supernatural, but my husband and I live in the woods. One night we were having a bonfire and drinking some beers. We were buzzed but not drunk. We were looking at the stars when a massive triangular object with a light at all 3 points moved over us and just parked there. It blacked out the stars so you could see its shape clearly. It was several hundred feet up. We gradually started getting more and more freaked out. What the fudge is that? What the fudge is that? OMG, what the fudge is that? And no further memory. Woke up in bed the next morning, both naked, with our clothes scattered everywhere. Neither of us sleep naked, and we were not buzzed enough to have engaged in any hanky-panky without remembering it. I woke up thinking that was odd that we were naked and clothes strewn about, and went about my morning, not remembering the weird experience until about 20 minutes after I woke up. The memory of it came back super gradually. Couple hours later my husband woke up, going about his morning. I waited for an hour or so before asking him whether he remembered what we saw. He had no memory until I mentioned it. Our stories and memory matched 100%. I am a skeptic of just about everything, but it felt like whatever it was knew we saw it, tried to wipe our memories, and then put us to bed, assuming that humans just rip off their clothes and scatter them before they nest. I have never seen anything like that before or since. I'm an atheist, don't believe in ghosts, gods or the supernatural, and have always found UFO stories to be ridiculous BS. But I sure as fudge don't have an explanation for it. Okay, let me preface this by saying that I don't remember this. My parents, however, swear that it happened and they're not prone to lying. They were staying in an Airbnb with my brother and I. We were maybe 2 or 3 at the time. During the middle of the night, around 2 o'clock if I remember it right, I pop up, look at a ceiling corner, and chirp hi. What's your name? My name is Musical Brat. I was a really outgoing kid, and would greet other kids like this. Of course, my mother thought I just got my wires crossed or something and told me to go to bed. Eventually I did, and she had a good laugh about it. During breakfast, she casually brought it up with the owner of the house as a funny little anecdote. The owner chuckled a bit, and then he slowly got quiet. Oh, my mother, getting confused, asks him about it. That's probably Philip, he died here. Dumbfounded, my mother questioned him more, unsure if it was a joke or not. She learned that he was a little boy in the 1700s or so that died of tuberculosis. Now that you mention it, the room that you stayed in was actually where Philip died. I'm sorry if he caused you any trouble. The owner was very apologetic and said that Philip had haunted this house for as long as he could remember. He did say, though, that he hadn't heard of any recent incidents with him and this was the first one in a while. It still gives me chills when I think about it. I lived in Newcastle on the northeast of England about 20 years ago. It was a flat in a multi-story block and I live on the 4th floor. As soon as I moved in I had a terrible uneasy feeling when I went into the master bedroom. It was freezing cold and I always felt dizzy. It was a 2-bed flat. No matter how I tried I just could not force myself to sleep in it. I slept in the small box room. I could never get a peaceful night's sleep. About a week after I moved in, I began to feel dread. I am still shaking telling this now. It was instant feeling. I was terrified. I had to go and check the flat. I had to wander down the hallway and check the cupboard, the bathroom and then the spare room. I then was outside the master bedroom. I knew something was making me feel uneasy. I was terrified. I opened the door and there standing next to the window, looking out was an old man. I froze, not sure what I had just seen. I saw him as clear as day. He was very thin and had a dark suit on. He wore a cloth cap. I closed the door and packed my bags and I left that night. I stayed with my friend till I got a new place. I never went back. I left my stuff in the flat. I just couldn't go back to get it. I still get scared thinking about what I saw. I hope I never experience that again. Got a story for ya. First, some backstory. Couple years ago my mother and father were going through divorce and it was anything but pretty. Dad turned to alcohol, was a real bad alcoholic in the past, again, and eventually my mom kicked him out of the house for our safety. Peace for a while until money gets tight and we basically have to invite dad back to live as a tenant so we could pay rent. Things were okay for a while, but soon his drinking became a problem, and my mother and I received the brunt of his drunk rage. He hated my mom with a passion, and I swear to God that hatred manifested as some kind of specter, and it liked to torment me. I'm a late night gamer and usually stay up very late playing, and it was usually around 1 or 2 in the morning this shadow would start appearing. It was subtle at first, saw something moving in my periphery, computer was right next to doorway to kitchen. Soon it would be more apparent, I'd catch it moving around, and was able to see what it looked like. It was this tall humanoid figure, probably 6 feet tall, kind of hunched, had glowing white eyes, and I swear it had claws. It would walk around the areas my dad frequents, like his office and a recliner he would often pass out drunk in. I would often see it standing around there or walking by, but nothing more. Near the end of the divorce when we were gearing to move away from him, it started getting more aggressive. It would approach me sometimes as if trying to intimidate me, just like my dad. I would just tell it calmly it needed to leave, and for the most part it worked. My mom and I are kind of aware of these things, and when I told her about it, we started to sage those areas. One night we forget and this was the most aggressive it ever was. More late night gaming, as usual. I'm minding my business and catch it walking by again. Oh well. I take a quick break to grab something from the kitchen, and as soon as I turn away from the computer to get up, my heart skips a beat. The figure is standing right next to me, and this is the first time we've locked eyes. Those hollow white eyes stared at me and time sort of froze. I wasn't scared, however, and as if it was my dad, I told it off, saying it needed to leave, it was not to come back and would not be welcome wherever I was. It loomed over me for a little bit before turning around and walking off. That was the last I ever saw it. Haven't had any issues since, and only my family knows about it. My mother believes me, and she's seen it too. We even described the same figure. My brother also believes, but never saw it. Dad didn't care when I told him, but seemed interested when we saged. We've since moved away to a smaller apartment, and I haven't had any paranormal experiences since I rarely speak with my dad now. It was such a weird experience, and it wasn't till after I told the spirit off that I got scared and went to bed. I was camping with my family at the beach when I was about 7/8 so I can remember it vaguely. We were pushed back from the shore a bit to where the sand wasn't soaking but it was damp enough you could still see footprints and draw on it. We were all intense, aside from my cousin who was sleeping in a hammock outside. Sometime during the night my grandfather started to gasp for air and throw a fit as if he was being shocked or suffocated. My grandfather was a notorious snorer and sleepwalker so we thought nothing of it, just that it was worse than usual. That morning my aunt got up early to make breakfast and bagged lunches. Everyone got up on their own time. It was a lazy morning. My grandfather got up last, and said he had a nightmare that his deceased ex-wife was choking him. He said his neck felt sore and upon further inspection he had hand marks and brushing on his neck, like he was being choked. He went back to his tent to see if there was anything that could have caused it. He didn't find anything. Thinking it was a criminal thing or attempted murder by a real person we didn't mess with the tent. We told the park ranger and came to inspect and he saw there were no prints in the sand aside from my grandpa's. I know it sounds crazy but not my story but my mom's. When she was a teenager, around 16-17 and home alone she would often hear the voice of either her brother, sister or parents. This voice would call her by name from bedrooms upstairs if she was downstairs and then from downstairs as soon as she was upstairs. Eventually she would get so freaked out that she would leave. This would also happen to my grandparents and aunt and uncle when they were home alone. It never happened when multiple people were home. Additionally, in the same house my mom, grandma, and aunt arrived home one day and swear they heard a full-blown conversation card game taking place in the garage. They swear they heard men walking around in boots and beer glasses slamming down on a table. They all say it sounded like something that would take place in the 1800s, early 1900s. Also, when I was a baby, on my first birthday at the time I was born, my mom took me downstairs because it was the middle of the night and I apparently refused to go back to sleep, to get me juice, and I apparently said hello to my deceased father. My mom says she ran upstairs so fast. I always had a creepy feeling about the house. Unfortunately, my grandparents have since moved somewhere new. I'd say fortunately they moved.